Hi, I'm Marv. This is the second video in my Aftermath series. The last one talked about why you'd want to play Aftermath, and this one's going to talk about characters, how to create characters, how GMs should create characters, and how players should create characters. So with characters, the first thing we have to talk about are groups. Groups are broken up by the attribute score. So your rating in a score, let's say your wit for an attribute, is broken down to a specific level. If you have a 15 wit, then your attribute group number is 3 and your effect dice is 1d10. That works for all attributes. In a character, we're talking about wit, will, strength, deafness, etc. Your strength group determines the amount of damage you do in combat. If you're group 3, you do 1d10. If you're group 4, you do 2d6. This is an important breakdown, and also it's important to consider that these groups have definite edges to them. So group 3 is 15 to 24. That means that if you have a 24 strength, you will do 1d10 damage. If you have a 25 strength, you will do 2d6 damage. So it's pretty obvious that if you have an attribute that's near a level, in other words, at that group breakpoint, then you need to go ahead and up it to the breakpoint. Realistically, in a game, a character does not easily add attributes during downtime. It takes a month of downtime, and that's a lot of time that can be spent on something else, and getting a month might be difficult. So it's difficult to raise attributes. So try and get the attributes you want your character to have for the game when you roll it up. If not, you can go 2 below the attribute, and then at some point you can probably build up 2. Either it takes 2 months, or a doctor with therapy can give you 2 points in 1 month. So it's a good idea to start off very close or right on the attributes you want to have. And that's one of the problems with Aftermath, unfortunately, is that these attribute groups mean that people don't have a 13, a 14, a 16, an 18 in their attributes, because the group level is 15, 25, and 35. And there's a 5, but nobody uses the 5. So why would you have an attribute of 13 if for any reason? You wouldn't. So attributes for strength, deafness, wit, and possibly health always fall on 15, 25, or 35. So let's start off and talk about these characters and talk about what all those things mean. We're going to go to the character creator at I314, and I'm just going to use this as an example. And I'll pop these screens up so you can see them. So let's start off with a standard character. Characters and these game types on this pull down in I314 are basically something that your game master has set up, and it is the ability of the character to live in a specific environment. They have different things. Standard campaign is a 20-year after campaign, and in those 20-year after campaigns you get free skills and you get limited this and that. It's all in there, we'll talk about it. But for a standard Aftermath game, you'd go ahead and use the standard Aftermath. So the first thing you have to pick is your age group. Age groups go from 0 to 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll notice that those are used a lot in the game because those are the group numbers. So we're always talking about things that are group 1, group 2, group 3. The base age of each character is 13, 22, 31, 40, 49, and 58. So the higher your group number, the older you are. And the higher the group number, the older you are, the more skills you have. So a character in age group 5 is going to have a lot of skills, and a character in age group 0 is not going to have any skills. In fact, for the most part, unless you're doing it for role-playing reasons, don't do an age group 0 character. And if you've never played Aftermath before, don't do age group 1. Try and go to age group 2, 3, and 4. As you get a little bit older, as you get into age group 4 and 5, you do have a problem that you start to have problems with your attributes. You waste a lot of attributes on attribute losses because you're old. And create a group 3 character, since that's probably the easiest to play. And then you can pick changed or not. My games, I don't usually have changed characters. Changed is mutations and stuff like that. They're not very realistic, and they're can be game breaking, so I just don't use changed at all. We'll go ahead and set this character up. And if we look at this character, it's age group 3. It gets some development points. We'll talk about that. It gets some attribute points. Great, cool. Go to the next page. The next thing we pick are talents. Talents are your basic affinity for doing things. There are 6 of them, so let's look at them. Charismatic, which is your basic persuasiveness and your ability to lead others. Charismatic is not widely used in the game. Charismatic character does have some advantages, but not a lot. Combative. Combative is your ability, your raw ability, your aggressiveness, your fighting ability. That is an important one. Communicative is your ability to, your facility with languages and your ability to communicate ideas. Now, this is one attribute that must be above 0, or you cannot teach other characters skills you know. So always make your communicative above 0. Aesthetics, appreciation and performance of artistic endeavors. As you can imagine, that's not widely used. Although aesthetic has been used in my game, it's not widely used, and probably don't want to have an aesthetic character. Mechanical is your affinity for technology and its products. Mechanical is widely used, and we're going to talk about how these are used in a bit, but it's widely used. Natural is the affinity for the natural environment. That's like stealth and search and those kind of things. Natural is very good, but what skills you have determine your talents, not the other way around. Even though we're picking them first here, we're going to go back and probably change these based on what we actually pick as our skills. And finally, scientific is the capacity for reasoned analysis, perception of cause and effect. Scientific, again, mechanical, natural, and scientific are very important. You pick it based on what skills you're going to have. If you're new to the game, you don't know what skills you're going to have, pick them and we'll go back and change them. So a standard character has a combative of at least 10. And my sample character, if you can see it, or has a -2. So I have to allocate at least 12 points to get 10 points. When you have 10 points, you get what's called significant aptitude. Significant aptitude gives you a special ability in whatever talent you have a significant attribute you have a significant aptitude in. In this case, I put 12 points into combative, which gives me a 10. So it says that I have a BCS of 3. BCS is base chance of success, which means a 3 on a d20 or less, for gauging opponents, and a +1 to combative based learning rates. In other words, I learn how to do combative stuff better, and I'll show you how to determine which skills are combative skills. And I can also gauge opponents 3 out of 20 times. 3 out of 20 times is not great, but the gauging of opponents gives you a lot of information. It's something you want to roll for. Now I have 10 points left down here at the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure my communicative is at least 1 by adding 2 points. Now I have 8 points left. I'm going to go for natural, 8 points in natural, and then we'll see how that works out for me. If that doesn't work out well, then I will go back and change it. Now the one thing that I'm noticing with this character is I have a scientific of -1. Scientific of -1, any attribute you have -1 in means that you cannot learn by doing in that skill. So a scientific skill like first aid means if I use first aid in the game, I can't roll for learn by doing to get better at it. That's a restriction. That's a restriction because you might use first aid a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 points to scientific so I can get at least a 1. And then I'm going to take 2 points off that natural. And again, we can go back and edit these later. We'll see how they go. So I'm going to hit continue. Now we get to attributes. Your attributes are picked on this page based on your attribute increase points and your development points. Now, because my age group, I get 42 development points. That's my base age for age group 3. So I get 42 development points. Development points can be spent either on attributes or skills, whichever way you want to use them. It is important that you put some of them into attributes. Your character can raise skills during the game fairly easily. Your character cannot raise attributes worth a darn. So every development point that you put into your character gives you additional points that you can put into attributes. Points that you will never be able to get during the game. We're going to do that. Remember, each development point that you add adds 1d3 of points to your attributes. So let's think of that. If it's 3 points, that's 3 months of downtime it would take to make that. So by sliding that slider down a little bit, and getting, let's say, 6 points, that's 6 months of downtime worth of points that you've just purchased. And you lose some skill points, 6 skill points. But, hey, well, it's not even 6 skill points because really it's 1d3. So it could be 3 to 6 skill points depending on how you did it. But we're going to go ahead and do this. We're going to make this an 8. And then we can start picking our skills. Now, one thing about skills, we have to consider those group breakpoints. 15, 25, and 35. And 5, I guess, but nobody does a 5. Average for a non-player character, just somebody in Aftermath, the average is about 12, between 10 and 12. So a character needs at least a 10 and 12 in every attribute to be normal with everybody else. If you go below an 8, you're handicapped in that. If you go below a 5, you're severely handicapped. If you severely handicapped your character trying to do a min-max, you will find out that your character cannot do anything. One area where you can go ahead and put a min-max type of thing is will. Will is not used in the game very much. But a lot of game masters use will to say, hey, what is your willpower? Can you stay awake during your watch? Are you going to avoid drinking that whole bottle of beer? Are you going to not steal stuff from the still and drink it? You have no willpower, you're going to do stupid stuff. Being handicapped in will is a bad idea. Let's go ahead and set up our groups, starting with wit. Wit is the most important attribute you have in the game because it affects almost every single skill. So every point you put in attribute, you get 1/5 of a point for your BCS. In other words, if you spend 5 points, you get 1 BCS point. So if you spend 25 points in wit, every skill that you have that has a wit and every skill that you start with is going to have a BCS of 5. That's really good. So if you get an initial skill in a skill, it's going to start at 5 no matter what. That's really good. It's expensive to put 25 in it. So we're going to start with 15. And you basically pull the pull down until it says 15. So there's 15. Now that makes me attribute group 3. My learning rate will be 3. I can learn things. I'm doing well. Okay, will is not useful in the game, so I'm going to make it an 8. Strength is very useful. I'm going to make it a 15. You must be strength group 3 for the average character. Strength group does 3 important things. 1, it determines how much stuff you can carry. If you can't carry anything, your character is going to suffer from not having stuff. The second thing that strength does is it creates your strength group. Your strength group is the amount of strength you have for swinging weapons. Weapons, on average, require a strength of 3 for good weapons. There are strength group 2 and strength group 1 weapons, but they're weaker. They don't do as much damage. And if you want to do a lot of damage in hand-to-hand combat, a 3 is really important. 25, a group 4 is better, but unless you're going to do a lot of hand-to-hand combat, 15 is good enough. The other thing I said there was 3. The third one is firearms. If you're going to shoot a firearm and you're going to shoot a 22, your strength can be whatever you want. If you're going to shoot a 7.56 or a 50 cal, your strength better be pretty high or that recoil is going to wipe you out, especially if you have a low phases consumed in action. I'll tell you what that is in a second. 15 is good. It allows you to get average recoil from average weapons and it doesn't affect you that bad. You're not going to be hand holding a 50 cal, but okay, who can do that? Deftness. Deftness is your character's manual dexterity and it determines how many actions you get in combat. DAT. Detailed action time. Deftness is not a standalone characteristic. It works hand in hand with speed. I'm going to set my deftness to 15. With a deftness of 15, which I failed to do, I'm going to set it to 15. Okay, there you go. When you have a deftness of 15, you get 3 actions in combat. That's average. If you set it to 25 or 35, you get 4 and 5 actions. That's amazing and awesome. However, there are 3 factors in combat that are very important. BAP, MNA, and PCA. Base action phase, the phase at which you can start acting. MNA, maximum number of actions. And PCA, phases consumed in action. Your base action phase is based on your speed. So I'm going to give this guy a speed of 16. And then over here we're going to look, and that gives him a base action phase of 7. Oh, sorry, I didn't even do it right. Okay, 18. So that gives me this a base action phase of 8, which is your base action phase is your deafness saving throw, ability saving throw, AST. When I set it to 16, I get a base action phase of 8. So then we know that our deafness group is 3. That gives us base action phase of 8, maximum number of actions of 3, and a phases consumed in action of 2. So if you imagine a timeline, starting at phase 8, your first action is at phase 8. You take your first action, it takes 2 action phases. 2 action phases, and you can start a new action. Now, if you're shooting a gun, that's 3 shots in 2 phases. If you're swinging a sword, that's 1 swing every 2 phases. If you're using 2 weapons, that's 1 swing every phase, a primary and secondary weapon. That's very good. Now, what happens if I jump this up a little bit and I go up to 22? Now, if I go up to 22, we round down, my base action phase is now 10. So I start much sooner. If you remember that chart, you start at phase 10 rather than phase 8. You will probably go first in every combat. Now, the way that these base action phases work is like initiative in D&D. Your initiative is 10. You start first with everybody else who has an initiative. And then you compare deafness, determine who goes first beyond that. But basically, at a 10, you're going to start first. The NPCs you're fighting, they'll probably never start at 10 unless somebody you don't really want to fight. And those people who start at 10, you shouldn't be fighting them in the first place. So you start at 10. Your maximum number of actions is 3. You may do 3 things in combat. That makes your phases consumed in action. 3 goes into 10 3 times when you're running down. So your phases consumed in action is 3. That means every swing of your sword takes 3. Now let's jump that up a little bit higher. Let's put this up to 30. Now your base action phase is 15. You're going to go way earlier than anybody else. Amazingly early. But your maximum number of actions is still 3. 3 goes into 15 5 times. Your phases consumed in action is 5. It takes you 5 actions to swing a sword. The average character's base action phase is 7. They're doing their entire action in 7, and you're swinging your sword 1 time in 5. You'll be fighting in molasses. You will go first. You'll start swinging at phase 15, and just about the time that everybody else is starting, you'll be hitting with that attack. It will be atrociously horrible because it is not a good balance between base action phase and maximum number of actions. Those two, your deafness and your strength, and those groups must be perfectly balanced. So let's whip this thing back down to a more reasonable number. If we make this base action phase 8, that gives us a maximum number of actions of 3. 3 goes into 8 2 times. Your phases consumed in action is 2. That's much better. You start at phase 8, you swing your sword in 2 actions, you shoot a gun in 2 actions. That's really good. Now, the only time you'd want that to be a little bit different is if you're shooting a really, really big gun, 50 caliber Barrett per se. That thing has a recoil that will kick your butt. So you really want to have your phases consumed in action as 3 for that type of character. Then you can shoot once every action and never get that overlap where you're shooting 2 in 1 action. Because with a phases consumed in action, if you take fire 3 shots in 1 turn, you will fire once in the first turn, you'll fight at the mid phase, and then you fire at the last phase. Well, those first 2 are going to be grouped together. So now you're shooting 2 shots in the first phase. So you get double the recoil, which could give you a -6 to your shot. If you space that out to 3 shots, you get -0. So definitely consider that. Base action phase, phase consumed action, all has to work out. Now, if you raise that deafness to 25, it makes you really fast as far as attacking. And you could have a phases consumed in action of 1, which means if you've got two weapons, you can swing twice in 1 turn. That's awesome. But if you pick up a gun, your recoil is going to be horrible. So think about what you're going to do. How's the game work? Is there a lot of guns? Is there a lot of big guns? Is there a lot of swords? Are you going to be standing up next to somebody fighting them? Or are you going to be 3 miles away shooting a sniper gun? Figure that out. Set your base action phase, maximum number of actions, and phases consumed in action to that. I'm going to use 15 for my deafness and 16 for my speed. That gives me a deafness group of 3 and a base action phase of 8, which works out perfect. Now, if I scroll down, I have 19 points left. So if I apply those 19 points to my health, well, that's actually not 19, that's a little bit more. Okay, that gives me a health of 24. Health gives you 2 factors. And remember I said don't do 24, but here I am setting at 24 because I only have enough points to do 24. Health group is not super important for anything. It does affect your ability to withstand damage in your DRT, damage resistance total, but not your group. It does calculate your healing rate, but if I have a 24, I'll just spend a month's downtime, pop that up to 25, get a healing rate of 4. That'll be great. Strength, wit, and deafness are very much locked into those groups. Will, speed, and health, they're not so important. Okay, so that gives me a 15 in wit, my ability to discover and learn. 8 in my will, the strength of the character's mind. A 15 strength, which is the sheer power of the character, which is group 3. Deafness of 15, speed of 16, and health, the measure of the character's constitution and resistance to disease and recuperation powers, of 22. That's great. Now, if you look at this right column, final value, it says age modifier 4. That means I got plus 4 points from my age group because age group 3 people tend to be smarter. I got 4 to my will. They tend to have more willpower. I got -2 to my strength because I'm getting a little old and my strength's going down. Deafness -2, speed -2, health -2. Those are my age group modifiers. If I was a different age group, I'd get different modifiers. Okay, now that all those points are spent, I'll do that. And I'm going to show you something real quick. I'm going to clear that. And now we're back to having my points. If you hit this auto button down here, it will automatically allocate your attributes. And in this particular case, it gave me a 15 and 8, a 15, a 14, and a 32. So that 14 is a little low. I'm going to move that up to 16, and I'm going to reduce this to 30. And you'll notice that it did change my attribute points up here to 12. That's why I got so many more points. Use the auto button to get started. Yes, it pretty much whips out that 15, 8, 15, 15, 16, and then powers everything else in the health settings, but that's are the standard settings for characters. Remember, in the Aftermath, you do not roll up a unique character attribute-wise. Your character is going to look like everybody else. Not everybody is, some amazing person in Aftermath. Tom Brady would be an amazing person, but he's very unique. So pretty much everybody else in Aftermath, if you're not Tom Brady, you're everybody else. So I'm going to move to the next page. I'm going to go continue. Okay, once we get to the next page, we get to the skill page. The skill page determines what skills you're going to pick. Now you do get some free skills based on your age group. In this particular one, I get an initial score in pre-rune culture, which if you look down here, that'll already be checked. And then 2 non-firearm skills or 1 firearm skill. You get those free, so make sure you buy one that costs more. Don't buy cheap ones. And double literacy and double tech use, so I don't even have to mess with those. When you create your character, this is where you're going to have a unique character, and this is where you have to balance your party. Every party should have a doctor. Every party should have somebody that's good at hand-to-hand, and every party should have somebody that's good at rifle. If there's 2 characters in the game, you're going to have to double up on those things. If you have 5 characters, doctor, a couple of hand-to-hand fighters, and a couple of gunfighters, maybe someone who's good at stealth. Maybe. That's the best way to go. So we're going to roll up a standard hand-to-hand fighting character since they're a little more complex than anything else. And because we're going to roll up a hand-to-hand character, even though we have a strength of 15, we're still going to do that because 15 is good enough for hand-to-hand. I'm going to pick some skills. So I get 2 non-firearm skills. So if you go down here to the non-firearm skills, single weapon, and if you can't find a skill, you can just type it up here, SINGLE, and hit enter, and it'll show you your single weapon score. Single weapon, it'll be at the top. Single weapon's cost is 1. It's format 3, and it's strength, deafness, and combative. So cost is 1, means it costs 1 point. I currently have 29 points because I did spend some development points on my attributes. Its format is 3. There are 3 formats: format 1, format 2, and format 3. Format 1 skills are simply a skill. Advanced farming, for example, is a format 1 skill. It's advanced farming. That's all there is to it. Format 2 skills have a sub-skill. So if we scroll down here and we look around, we'll find one called Foreign Language Chinese, Foreign Language English, Foreign Language French. These are all foreign language skill, but they have subclasses of Chinese English. Another one is search. Search is a Format 2 skill, right? So it has search urban and search rural. What a Format 2 skill value is that if you have search urban, because it's a Format 2 skill, you automatically get search rural at half the value. So you don't have to take search urban and search rural, just take search urban, give it a good value, and then you're going to have half that value in rural. That's a really good way to go. In fact, one of the things I suggest you do is don't take Format 2 skills twice. Just get the search urban. Then during the game, on your first downtime, say, I'm going to learn search rural. Well, when you do that, it'll automatically get an initial value of half of your search urban, which is great because then you can start leveling them separately. That's the only way you can get both of them up to a high score. Otherwise, you're going to keep search urban. Let's say you get 20 in search urban, you're going to have a 10 in search rural. But you could wait till you get an urban of 20 and then start raising your search rural at that point. So decisions to do. If you look around, survival skill also has subcategories. Arctic, desert, oceanic, rural, urban. Survival is one of the most important skills in this game. You must have survival. And you must have a survival that matches the environment you're going to be in. Survival desert doesn't do you much good in the Arctic. You'll notice that that's a Format 1 skill. That means survival ocean and survival rural are not halved. So if you have survival rural, you do not know anything about survival ocean. Now, yes, if you have survival rural, you can do a lot of things in the rural area because survival rural might also contain like the ability to start a fire. You can start a fire pretty much anywhere. But if you're looking for water, survival desert and survival urban are two different things. You're not going to be able to find water with survival using survival desert in a rural area because you're not going to find any cactuses to squeeze the water out of, or the same thing for rural. You're not going to find puddles in the desert unless it just rained. Then you don't really need the skill, do you? Okay, so that's the format. Format 3 skills are combat skills. Combat skills are different in that the average skill has a BCS of between 1 and 20. So your score will be between 1 and 100. In this specific, so your score goes from 0, meaning you don't have the skill, up to 100. With a Format 3 skill, it continues to 200. Your BCS is still calculated off the first 100, so it's between 1 and 20. And that second skill gives you your control throw and your aim points. Control throw means that if you throw a 20 and you get a critical miss, then you can roll your control throw. And if you roll under your control throw, no critical miss. So if you have a 20/10, that means under a 10, you roll under a 10, you don't get a critical miss, which is very helpful. And then if you have a 20/5/1, that means you've got an aim point. The aim chart, and I can pull up a chart for you here, the biped hit chart. The biped hit chart looks like this. It's got 30 locations. An aim point allows you to move it. So let's say you hit somebody in their chest armor, and you have one aim point, you can move it to their neck if their neck isn't armored. They might have armor class 9 here and armor class 0 here. You just move it up 9 more points of damage. Characters should determine what their primary combat skill is for hand-to-hand combat and double it. Now, we're not going to start there because we noticed that we do have 2 non-firearm skills. Well, if you look through here, archery costs 2 points. Crossbow costs 2 points. Single weapon, 2 weapon, all those cost 1 point. So we're going to buy 2 skills that are these ranged weapons that cost 2 rather than buy 2 1-point skills. And we're going to check one box, means we have it, we've purchased it once, and we're going to do crossbow. Crossbows are amazing. They kill people in one shot. And we're going to take those for 2 points. We're going to get those for free. Then we're going to take single weapon. We're going to use single weapon as our primary skill, so we're going to double that. That's now single weapon. Single weapon covers pretty much every skill, everything in the game that isn't a specialized weapon. And if we look at the weapons list, so everywhere on this list you see SW is a single weapon. Now it's also a 2 weapon. So if you have 2 weapon skill, you look for single weapon as well. But it covers fire axes, rapiers. If you have a pointy stick, sort of like a spear, but it's just a stick, it It's still a single weapon. That is not a specialized skill. A specialized skill would be like polearm, knife, flexible weapon, tonfa, throwing. Those are specialized. Longsword, those are specialized skills. They give you extra things. It's a great idea to look through the specialized skills and determine what specialized skill you want to have. Longsword is great. If you swing with a longsword and you miss, you can get him with a backstroke. You automatically get the polearm same way. Unarmed combat is another skill that's really good. If you're fighting someone who doesn't have a weapon and your character gets knocked down, you get a big minus for being knocked down. Unless you're using unarmed combat against an unarmed opponent. Then you just kick the crap out of them for laying down. It doesn't affect you. Look through the weapon skills, determine what you want to do. I'm going to take single weapon and I'm going to double it because it'll be my primary combat skill. Then I'm also going to take, because I'm strength group 3, I'm also going to take knife and I'm going to double that because knife is really good. Knives are not extremely effective, but they are effective enough. So I'm going to say knife, I'm going to double that. And I'm going to run up here and I'm going to hit calculate. See how many skill points I got left. When I finish my skill points, I now have 25 skill points remaining. Remember, I bought archery and I bought crossbow for 4 each. If your game has guns in it, you'll want to take guns. Now, there are 2 types of guns, pistol modern and rifle modern. Pistol modern are those things that you shoot at people. Now, unlike the real world, when you shoot at people in the aftermath, they're wearing heavy armor. Pistols don't penetrate heavy armor very well. Pistols are not very useful in aftermath. So if you're going to take one weapon skill that's a firearm, take rifle modern. It is a better choice. And I'm going to double rifle modern because I have a bunch of points. And if you can't find something, just type it in. But I'm going to double rifle modern. That's my combat skills. Then I said survival was important. I'm going to pick a survival that I like. And I'm going to go with urban. Survival urban, I'm going to double that. Doubling that gives me a lot better chance of surviving if I don't have food and shelter. Then I'm going to take stealth. Now, I've already picked urban for my survival, so I'm going to pick stealth urban. I'm going to buy one of those. One person in the group needs to have search urban or search world doubled. I'm not going to be the search leader, so I'm just going to take one. Now, I'll add to the search. Now that we've got our combat done, now you think, well, if you're doing a doctor, maybe you don't have to do all these combat skills. If you're in a party of 2 and you're the doctor, you need to take all these combat skills. If you're in a party of 5 and you're the doctor, you can probably avoid combat by standing in the back and not worrying about it. And you do have a couple of combat skills as a doctor, but nobody wants their doctor to get stabbed or shot, so they ain't going to let you stand up in front and fight. Unless there's only 2 of you, or 1 of you. In that case, take all the weapons. If you look across the top, there's a couple of these little auto buttons. Base combat, full combat, survival stealth, survival rural, armorer, weapon maker, food production, and thief. These give you an idea of things that you can do with your character by optimizing or setting your skills to the best levels. At this point, you determine what is my character going to be in the game. I've already decided I'm not a doctor and I'm not the search leader, so I need to do something. There are a couple of things you can do, and that's going to depend a lot in your DM's description of the game. If you're in a 20-year after game, maybe you can get away with not having any armorers in your group or tailors. If you're in a 150-year after game, you're going to need an armorer and a tailor and a weaponsmith. So I'm going to assume we're making a 20-year after character because that's what we picked. I'm going to take automobile driving because I think it's important. I'm also going to take bicycle riding. Take bicycle riding or beast riding, which is the ability to ride horses, depending on which direction you think the campaign's going. If there's a lot of horses in the campaign, take horses. If there's not, take bicycle riding. Bicycle riding is amazing because you can ride your bike everywhere. It's quiet, it's fast. And it says my total is 12. I have 12 points left. 12 points, that gives me a lot. I think I'll take first aid because first aid allows me to, patch a wound so I don't bleed to death. Let's say this character is going to be in a small party. My character probably is going to want to be able to produce food in some method, hunting or fishing. So we scroll down to hunting, which is probably the most popular one, and we find out it's a format 2 skill. Hunting trap or hunting shoot. Hunting shoot is guns, crossbows, bows, slingshots, whatever. Hunting trap is traps. Hunting shoot is an active skill. In other words, you go out, spend some of your day hunting. Trap setting is an inactive skill. You run out in the morning, set a couple of traps, come back in the afternoon, and pick up what you got. It depends on how you want to do it. I'm going to take hunting trap because it's passive and I just want to get food. I don't really care. If you're going to be stationary in one location, take dirt farming so you can grow your own food. If not, don't bother. I'm also going to take a couple of skills that maybe make me unique. Nunchuck is a kind of interesting skill. Tactics. Since I've got a lot of combat skills, I should consider tactics. And if you look at tactics, this skill allows characters to make observations of the tactical situation, causing the game master to give the player information regarding the situation. This is a cheat skill. In Aftermath, there are a couple of skills that allow you to cheat. And basically what rolling tactics does is it says, tell me what I, as a player, I haven't figured out already. Tactics can be extremely useful. It can tell you, there's 3 guys, and their left flank appears to be open for some reason. As a player, you don't know why. You just can't figure it out, and your character doesn't know. So how do I figure out why these people are looking this way? Well, I roll my tactics, and if I make a successful tactics, I ask the game master, why are they not covering their flank? If they're not covering their flank because they're stupid, he says they're stupid. But if they're not covering their flank because they've got a sniper over there, and if you step out on that side, he's going to shoot you, he'll tell you that. It's a great skill to have. So I'm going to take tactics, and I'm going to give it 1. I'm also going to take swimming just in case, because you never know when you're going to fall in water and drown. 7 points allows me, I already have a way to make food, which is my hunting skill. So I'm going to take something a little extra. I'm going to get lockpicking for 2. I'm going to get machining for 2 that allows me to make parts, etc. And then I'm going to pick up 3 points left. So I'm going to pick up something else. Throwing is a good skill if you need to throw things. Grenades, not so much. You can throw a grenade. But it does give you the ability to throw the grenade further. But throwing is good because it does allow you to throw things like knives. And it does allow you to be very accurate when you're doing things. So I'm going to take throwing. That's a 2. I need to pick up a 1. I'll take tracking as well. Now let's calculate that and see what that looks like. Perfect. I now have spent all my points. So we're not done. We're going to go back and look at it. So I'm going to hit continue. Literacy allows you to learn. Literacy allows you to learn by using a book. You can use a book as a teacher. So that's a gifted and expert teacher that will teach you. But you must roll your literacy skill. I have a 9 in literacy, so that means 11 out of 20 times I don't get any benefits. So I probably should double that. Talent usage is. So combative is used 8 times. Communicative is used 3 times. Mechanical is used 5, and natural is used 6. And scientific is used 1. Now remember, I made my natural a little bit higher. My natural is 6, and my mechanical, that seems pretty good. My natural is right. So let's look at my attributes. Wit is used 17 times. Like I said, it's always a lot. And deafness is used 15 times. So both of those are 15. I'm pretty good. If I was going to have one attribute at 25, it would have had to have been wit or deafness because I used it so many times. And that's my character. And if you look down the list, it shows you your doubled skills and etc. And if you like your character, put your character name in here. I'm going to call him Bob. Put in a password. I'm going to call it Bob. And hit save. And that's a character. Now, you notice that this character is not very unique. You're never going to get a unique character in Aftermath. Your uniqueness of your character comes from your role-playing. And that's what's so interesting about this game, is that you don't roll up an Aasimar cleric dwarf, and that defines who you are. In this game, you don't get all those little perks. This generic character needs to be role-played to turn into something. And I think that gives you a great opportunity to do stuff, because you will be role-playing this character into something, not rolling your Aasimar paladin. That's not how it works. You're going to roll this character as a generic nobody and turn him into somebody by gaining reputation and adding skills. And that's all there is to it. That's an Aftermath character. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have anything that you need me to cover extra, I'm happy to do it. Thanks.